Okay, this is probably a good 7 to 10 minutes, so get comfy. Power Up, November 4th, 2023, Haliburton, an event organized by 350.org, an international organization that is hosting these events on 6 continents today. We are joined by thousands, many thousands of people across the world today and yesterday. Welcome and thank you everyone for joining us. We are a very large group internationally, even if we are a small group locally. We are not alone in Haliburton as we shout with urgency for policymakers and leaders to cut ties with fossil fuels. Fast fare forever, fast fare forever. Have you seen the videos from Italy yesterday? Tuscany declared a state of emergency. Flooding? Yes. More than 20 rivers broke their banks as record-breaking Storm Ciarán dumped more than 8 inches of rain in 3 hours. Hospitals flooded, trains and highways, people trapped in homes, drowned. Unprecedented downpours. We keep hearing that word, and we keep seeing flash floods like never before, and extreme hurricanes like never before. Record-breaking wildfires, droughts, lost arable land, lost potable water, lost livable space, and heat waves. Jeff Goodell's new book, The Heat Will Kill You First, follows his old book, The Water Will Come. A wise and prescient man, Mr. Goodell writes this time about how the climate crisis brings no greater threat than extreme, deadly heat. Please come and join us. Thank you for coming. This year reported the hottest daily, weekly, and monthly average temperatures ever recorded by humans on land and in oceans. Glaciers and permafrost melt. Heating oceans acidify. Sea levels rise. Grab a sign on the chair. Join us, please. Sea levels rise. Cities submerge as this human-caused climate change steadily decreases the amount of Earth's surface on which we can play the game of life. Bill McKibben, the originator of 350.org. Should we call this a climate emergency? The rate of Earth's warming, the rate has increased more than 50% since 2010. The speed of change, the rate of global heating is no longer exponential. It is now vertical. It is abrupt. That is a scientific term that means we've gone from exponential to abrupt, straight up as of 2022. That's how much change is happening fast. Is it any wonder we are seeing the globe flailing and faltering as its many balancing systems are stretched? In fact, the rate of warming is much faster than the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, modeling had even predicted. Paul Beckwith, an Ottawa climate system science educator, makes videos to explain in layman's terms the heady papers published by climate scientists. He did one this week on this week's publication of James Hansen's highly talked about paper, Global Warming in the Pipeline, published in Oxford Open Climate Change. This landmark paper this week tells us that climate prediction models have been too conservative, that there is a rapid acceleration of global warming and that we are headed to a much, much warmer climate. If we do not change our present geopolitical approach to greenhouse gas emissions, global warming will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius in the 2020s and 2 degrees Celsius before 2050. I have personally seen graphs already recently showing blips above 1.5 in 2023. So we are there already. The enormity of the consequences, more extreme weather, a world simply not designed for humans, requires an abrupt stop and a reset, says this well-respected scientist. Mr. Hansen has made numerous climate predictions in his career. He's known for his out-there assessments, more extreme than those of his peers or mainstream scientists. But he also has a reputation of being right. And you know what he says in this very talked about paper this week? He says, number 1, we must dial back the heat track we are on by increasing the price on greenhouse gas emissions globally. Guess what? That's a carbon tax because it works. to increase awareness and reduce use, and we must simultaneously provide abundant, affordable, dispatchable, clean energy. Among other things, Mr. Hansen calls for young people, where are the young people, to grasp the situation and reset their behaviors, but we need to set the example. Get on board. They, young people, don't have a choice. Quote, Rebecca Solnit, American prolific author, environmentalist. Hope is not a lottery ticket you can sit on the sofa and clutch, feeling lucky. It is an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. Hope should shove you out the door because it will take everything you have to steer the future away from the annihilation of the Earth's treasures and the grinding down of the poor and marginal. To hope is to give yourself to the future, and that commitment to the future is what makes the present habitable. American astronomer and NASA scientist Carl Sagan was known for his speeches to government in the 80s and 90s that pointed out the certainty of fossil fuel-driven climate change. He made plenty of speeches. Many are getting a lot of plays on social media nowadays. He used to point out the enormous resources the United States invested in the Cold War from 1945, despite the lack of 100% certainty that the Russians would invade the US. He would ask audiences to guess the amount of that investment, and they would guess billions. Well, the amount, he said, invested in the Cold War was $10 trillion because of a theoretical risk. He pointed out the irony and the tragedy of not investing in preventing the inevitable disaster, climate change. UNICEF reports over 1 billion children are at extremely high risk of severe and destructive climate hazards. 1 billion children! They use a term, adaptation emergency, meaning we are not preparing fast enough. They report that developing countries need 10 to 18 times more public finance than what is now provided. Efforts must increase to find ways to grow food in hotter, drier climates, to move people from flooded and flooding areas, to access clean water. And we are watching mass migration already through Mexico to the US, from Africa to Europe. Carl Sagan would point out that failure to invest in adaptation has huge implications for losses and damages, and he would be right. The United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, says failure to invest in and plan for climate adaptation leaves the world exposed. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says we must close this adaptation gap now. Every billion invested in adaptation against coastal flooding saves 14 billion American dollars in economic damages. IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, reports investing in renewables will reduce costs by at least 5.7 billion US dollars every single year, and that will increase with improved technology for the next 25 to 30 years. How about a George Monbiot quote today, fresh off the press this morning? Earth systems are being rushed towards their tipping points by governments that offer us nothing but chaos. Last page, folks, bear with me. So it is on us, friends and neighbors. Let's urge policymakers to rapidly stop emitting all greenhouse gases today. We have the technology, we need the will. Yoo-hoo! Big vote. That's not lost on us.
It wasn't a wake book.
It wasn't a wake book. Bill C-50 is the Canadian Sustainable Jobs Act, a policy that requires the government to transition Canadian jobs and economy to a clean energy economy. We can support that. It is happening. Renewable energy. It's already a reality in many countries. It's clean, it's inexhaustible, which is why it's called renewable. It's safe, it's available everywhere. It is not dominated by 1 or 2 countries with all the resources, and it is cheaper in so many ways. We cannot wait. We have lost the buffer we had to do this transition gradually. Every minute and every effort makes a difference in the amount of suffering ahead. Power up! End fossil fuels, fast, fair, forever. End fossil fuels, fast, fair, forever. End fossil fuels, fast, fair, forever. End fossil fuels, fast, fair, forever.